12 fast boats, closing in on a U.S. destroyer at full speed. No warning, no radio, just impact distance shrinking fast. The boats split, some pushed left, some pushed right. A deliberate move, designed to force the crew to choose which threat to prioritize first. Seconds were now the only thing that mattered, but something unexpected was already happening above them. Surveillance aircraft had been tracking every single boat, every heading, every speed change, fed directly into the ship's combat system in real time. The picture was complete before those boats even realized they had been seen. And then the first lock was confirmed. This was no longer an approach. This was an engagement. There was no margin left for error. The crew had trained for exactly this scenario. Swarm tactics, multiple contacts, simultaneous vectors. Every drill, every exercise, every readiness check. It had all been building toward a moment exactly like this one. And when it arrived, the response was not panic. It was precision. CIWS locked, ready to fire. 5-inch gun tracking. Helicopter already airborne. Engagement zone tightening by the second. That's when the formation broke. Some boats accelerated, others scattered. The swarm that had looked coordinated and dangerous on radar was now fragmenting under pressure. But fragmentation doesn't mean safety. It means more targets moving in more directions, and a system designed to track all of them simultaneously. There was no gap. There was no angle that wasn't covered. And then, the engagement fully activated. The MH-60 Seahawk was already low over the water, moving fast, targeting locked on the lead boats. From above, those fast attack craft had nowhere to go. Speed on the water means nothing when the weapon tracking you has been locked for several minutes and is closing from an angle you cannot match. The engagement unfolded quickly, not cleanly, nothing at sea ever is, but decisively. One by one, the contacts that had been racing toward the destroyer were neutralized. The swarm that had launched with a clear objective reached the end of that mission without achieving it. But here is what made this moment more than just a tactical victory. It revealed something about the nature of the threat itself, and that is the part most people miss when they see headlines about fast boats being sunk in the Persian Gulf. Those boats were not the point. They were the test. Now here is why this threat is never dismissed, no matter how small those boats look on a radar screen. In 2000, the USS Cole was anchored in the port of Aden in Yemen, a routine refueling stop, no combat operation, no elevated threat level, and then a small boat pulled alongside. It was packed with explosives. The blast tore a 40-foot hole in the side of the ship. 17 American sailors were killed. 39 were injured. The Cole nearly sank. That boat was nothing compared to the destroyer beside it. It had no missiles, no radar, no armor, just speed, explosives, and a willingness to close the distance. That is the entire strategy, not a fair fight. A fast, cheap, expendable weapon that only has to work once. Send 12 of them at once. And you are not expecting all 12 to succeed. You are making a calculation, a brutal, cold calculation. That somewhere in that swarm, at least one finds the angle that is not covered. At least one gets close enough. And that one changes everything. Now think about what that means from the other side of this equation. The crew of that destroyer cannot afford a single failure. Not one. Every engagement, every approach, every swarm that comes out of the darkness, every single one has to be stopped completely. Because the cost of one getting through is catastrophic. Not just in lives, not just in the damage to the ship, but in what it signals to every adversary watching. It signals that the method works. And once the method is proven to work, it gets used again and again. With more boats, more coordination, more willingness to absorb losses on the way in. That is the pressure the IRGC applies, not through strength, through persistence, through the mathematics of repeated attempts against a defense that must be perfect every single time. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Every day, tankers carrying nearly 20% of the world's total oil supply pass through that corridor, fuel heading to Europe, to Asia, to global markets that cannot absorb a sustained disruption. A single major incident in that strait does not stay a military problem for long. It becomes an energy crisis, a supply chain emergency, a global economic event. That is why the United States does not simply react to incidents in the Gulf and move on. That is why the presence is permanent. That is why the response to every escalation is heavier than the one before. But something shifted after this particular engagement. And this is where the story moves beyond 12 boats in the water. The United States repositioned. More aircraft, more surveillance, more helicopters feeding live data to every ship already in position. Systems that were already strong became stronger. Coverage that was already wide became wider. This is not a reaction. This is a posture shift. And posture shifts at this scale do not happen because of one incident. They happen because someone looked at the pattern, the frequency, the coordination, the escalating ambition, and decided that the previous level of presence was no longer sufficient. The message being sent is not complicated. It is this: the next time those boats move, the response will already be waiting, not scrambling to respond. Already waiting. CIWS active, helicopters airborne, surveillance overhead, targeting systems live, before the first boat crosses the threshold. But here is the question that every analyst, every commander, every sailor rotating through that region is sitting with right now. Can this hold every single time? Not against 12 boats on one afternoon, against the next wave, and the wave after that, against the attempt that comes 6 months from now on a night when visibility is low, when weather is degrading sensors, when the crew has been at sustained high readiness for weeks, and fatigue is a factor no piece of hardware can compensate for. The IRGC is patient. They have been running this pressure campaign for years. They absorb losses. They study responses. They adjust tactics. They look for the night when conditions are slightly worse and the window is slightly shorter, and the system that has to be perfect every time isn't. Because their strategy does not require success every time. It requires success once. One boat, one gap in the coverage, one moment where the response is 2 seconds slower than it needed to be. That is all it takes to change the entire strategic picture in the Persian Gulf. The hardware is excellent. The training is real. The systems that defended that destroyer on that day worked exactly as they were designed to work. But hardware has limits. Systems have limits. And an adversary that is willing to keep sending boats, indefinitely, repeatedly, accepting every loss, is an adversary that is betting on your limits before they reach their own. That is the reality of this situation. Not a clean victory, not a resolved threat. A sustained test of readiness, of patience, of the ability to stay sharp when the pressure never fully lifts and the next attempt is always coming. And the real question is not what happened to those 12 boats that day. The real question is what happens the next time they come back. Because they will come back. And that test, the one that started long before this incident and will continue long after it, is still running.